Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really looking forward to talking to you all today. What I'll be sharing today is actually part of a larger course that we here at Converge Coaches started. It's called Career Compass. You'll see there's a QR code here and throughout that you can click on if you'd like to get more information. But this is, of course, just a tiny snippet and what we're going to fit in 30 minutes. It's going to be a lot of information, so please be ready to take notes. But real quickly, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Elle O'Flaherty, and I'm one of the founders here at Converge Coaches. Uh, Not to confuse anyone, I also own Interlace Solutions, where we do individual coaching, as opposed to Converge, where we do more training courses and that sort of a thing. I am a career and executive coach. I also specialize in helping professionals with ADHD. And one of my specialties is helping with the job search, which is what we're going to talk about today. And in this course, if you were to take the full course, which I think you'll understand why we can't fit all of it into 30 minutes, but the course is actually 6 90-minute live sessions. So it's live with either me or my co-founder, Robin. And each session is absolutely packed with information. We also have weekly AMAs where you can ask us anything. There are office hours. So you get lots of one-on-one support and plenty of information. We also pair you up in learning partners so that you have some accountability with your partner as well. This is basically a way to not just teach you how to do your job search, but also to make sure that you're making progress. And we pull you through every step of the way. And then, of course, you join our alumni network, which helps to start building your professional network right away. So it's a really comprehensive and hands-on course. There are 6 sessions, as I mentioned. It involves every single thing you can think of, from figuring out what you might want to do for your next job or your first job, all the way through to, so you got the job. How do we present ourselves in the workplace? How to hit the ground running and really become a valuable part of the team. But today, we're going to focus on parts of the second course, and that is building the fundamentals. And what I mean by that are things like your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and also how to leverage LinkedIn for networking. And then, of course, at the end of every session, we have significant Q&A to answer questions. Now, with 30 minutes, we're not going to have so much time, but I will definitely leave 5 to 10 minutes at the end, and I would love to take any of your questions. So let's talk a little bit about your resume. And the thing that I really want you to think about throughout when we're talking about creating documents for your application is the purpose. So why are we doing this? Why are we writing your resume? Well, every single aspect of your job search is really a exercise in sales, and we're selling you. So by extension, your resume is your sales tool. And most people go into this thinking, what am I going to put on my resume? What am I going to say? Instead, I really encourage you to think, what do they want to hear? So every time you read a job announcement, they're telling you they have a problem. The problem is they need to hire someone to do whatever the work is or whatever the thing is. And we want that person to be you. And so think about what they want to hear to know that you are uniquely qualified, that you not only fit what they're looking for as far as the qualifications, but also hopefully something above that and even beyond that, which we'll talk about in detail in just a moment. And then finally, we want to help them to see you in the job. Now, we're always writing for 3 distinct audiences with our resume. The first one is if the company, which many do at this point, but if the company uses applicant tracking software, that's ATS or some sort of AI tool, we're writing for the dumb computer that doesn't really know anything. It's just looking for keywords and phrases, essentially. The second audience is HR. And these are folks who are experts in human resources, but probably not in your position. So we want to make sure that it's very clear what we're saying so that someone who isn't familiar with your industry or your job will see easily that you are qualified. And then finally, it's for the hiring manager. This is your boss. This is probably someone who does know the job or at least knows about it. And so this person, we want to make it clear that they can see you as a member of their team and they can easily see what the return on the investment of hiring you is going to be. And I'll talk about that return on investment or ROI quite a bit because it's absolutely critical. But first, we have to catch their attention. And you see this big banner here that says 7.4 seconds. Well, that's about how long you have. And studies have shown that the average person in HR or hiring manager spends about this long just glancing through your resume. So we have to make sure that it really grabs our attention and it's super, super readable. How we do this is first of all, writing an achievement based resume. So, the number one mistake everyone over many years I've been doing this does is they write their resume like a job description. So, instead of telling me how well they've done things, they tell me just what they've done. So, uh, filed reports in order to be responsive to clients or whatever it might be. And I'm sure you did that, but basically, everyone in your job can say the same thing. And another way to say this is if you're using some of the examples from school, for instance, if you're a recent grad, maybe you're writing about a project or a paper that you wrote, that's totally fine. But just telling me you wrote it does not tell me how well it went. Instead, if you said, wrote a thesis on frogs or whatever it might be, that was recognized by department chair for being the best paper that year, then that does a couple of things. That tells me not just what you did, but how well you did it. It also gives me some outside corroboration, right? So if I tell you that I'm smart with a good sense of humor, maybe, but pretty much everyone says that. But if I tell you that I won a comedy festival, then that's somebody else telling you that. And that's even more powerful. So we want to look for ways that we can build in there your achievements and how well you did things. Resumes, by and large, and there are very, very few, basically no exceptions. So please don't think you're probably the exception. Should be reverse chronological order, meaning that you're going to list everything that from the most recent to the most distant in time. Now, as a recent graduate, you might have internships, you might have maybe you're a teaching assistant, maybe you had an on campus job. Make sure that you are listing these in reverse chronological order. As I mentioned, it needs to be highly readable and tailored. And I'm going to give you some more specific ideas of what that looks like. So, here again are the best practices. And I find having a visual is really helpful. And you'll find throughout our course that we give you a lot of visuals, illustrations, and we give you time to practice in the course because there's no better way to learn this than by doing it and figuring out what you don't know so you can ask questions in real time. But resumes these days should start with a summary section. And so that's this part up top here, right here. And it's the one exception to the chronological rule, which can be really powerful. So this is a great place where you can take bullet points or achievement book points from different parts of things you've done and put them all together. You can also write generally about yourself, meaning that you can say that you are a exceptional leader or whatever it is that you might want to say. And you can work in soft skills and also aggregate. So let's say that you were recognized for 3 different papers you wrote over the course of your college career. Well, then you can say, routinely recognized for ability to blah, 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 blah. And so these are really a unique and special part of your resume where you can tell your story and tell what makes you unique and special as a candidate. So don't just make this general. Don't just kind of put in some words that you've seen other people use. Really, really think about and take some time to brainstorm. What do other people come to me for help with? What if my professors or maybe a manager at an internship, or if you've had your first job, what have they said that you've done really, really well? What have you learned super quickly? These are the kinds of strengths and talents that we want to make sure we're highlighting here in your summary section. Then we also want to fill in some gaps. So if there is any gap in your resume, maybe you graduated and it's been some time, it's totally okay to have a line on there that maybe you took a gap year or that you were taking care of a sick parent or whatever it might be. But if there's a significant gap in time, and we go into way more detail in the course about this, but it's better to address it than to leave a red flag in the hiring manager's mind because they'll notice and they'll wonder what you're doing. So we want to make sure we can fill in as many gaps as possible. And as I said, there are a lot of ways to do this that we talk about, but start thinking about how you might want to approach it. There are also some exceptions to these rules, to the chronological rules. As I said, for most people, that's going to be in this summary section. So take advantage of it and think about how you want to tell your story. For some folks in HR and maybe some hiring managers, but I really hope not, but this summary section is the only part they'll read. So make it count. Then studies show that the things that people are paying most attention to when they look at your resume are the summary section, your job titles, and the dates. So be cognizant of that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the strategy of how you can use that in a minute. But that brings me to readability. This is so critical. If someone's going to scan your resume quickly, make sure it's easy on their eyes. So, one of the things we do to make that easy is strong horizontal lines. Now, English language readers, we tend to scan across the top of a page, down the left-hand column, through the middle, and if we're interested, we'll scan along the bottom. And you can see that in this example, I used strong horizontal lines to basically game that so that I'm drawing the reader's eye down and making them want to scan the entire resume. If it's really difficult to scan, people will just stop. They might get halfway down, maybe less, and they'll give up and kind of put your resume to the side. So, using these kinds of strong horizontal lines are really going to make your resume much more readable. Now, you'll notice this is one page. For most recent graduates, one page is the right length. I would say the vast majority. For all of us, basically, in the United States, there are some exceptions like academia and sciences, some other things, but for most of us, a resume should be no more than 2 pages. And if you go onto a second page, make sure that it's a full page. So we don't want to have a bunch of white space. And that's why I say for most recent grads, new professionals, we're going to want to stick to one page. And that page needs to have white space. Some people, sometimes when I see their resumes, it will be packed with information, which then turns into word salad. And it means that the person scanning your resume typically gives up and sets it to the side. It's far better to give enough information on your resume so that they're interested and want to invite you for an interview than to make it so dense that no one reads it. So really think about the use of white space. You'll notice here that I do that by centering certain things, like some of the headers. I also create space with the job title and the company on one end and the dates and the location on the other. There are a lot of different ways to do this that, again, in the course we go into, but think about how you might want to add that in your resume. Then the font. There's basically two major font families. There's serif, meaning the kind that have little feet on each letter, and sans serif, where they don't have feet. For traditional industries like law, business, finance, government, I typically recommend having a font with serif, like Times New Roman, Garamond, something like that. And we give you a list of recommended fonts in the course, so you won't have to worry about figuring out what I mean by this. For other more sort of like innovative and forward-leaning industries like tech, for instance, I recommend a sans serif font. Those fonts are also easier and faster for our eyes to scan. So serifs make our eyes kind of pause and it takes us longer to read things. So think carefully about scannability and which font might make sense for you. Then bold titles, again, to help us scan down. One thing I would point out is this person has a lot of bullet points right here in their job. And so I recommend people create subheaders. And if this is you, a subheader is great too, because it can also help tell your story, because you get to pick whatever that is. Maybe one is leadership, maybe one is strategy, whatever it might be for you, that can be very, very helpful. Again, to position you in a hiring manager's mind and tell your story. Now, this is really interesting. This is a heat map of hiring managers' eyes as they were reading different resumes. And as you can see, this is when it goes right. This map is, they're not just looking in one place, they're coming all the way down. You can definitely see what I mean by they spend a lot of time on the summary, on the job titles and dates, but they're still reading throughout. And so this is great. And in the course, I have a heat map of when it doesn't go right, which is actually really interesting as well. But I just want to make sure that we're thinking about that and how to get people to want to read your resume. A couple of words of caution, though. As I've already said, complicated layouts and graphics not only hurt with scannability, but also with the computer scan. And so still these days, many of the ATS software that scan your resume Can't read anything that's in a header, a footer, a table, columns, or a graphic. And so if any of those components are in your resume, take them out. In the course, I show you a resume that has those and what it looks like on the other end when it comes out of the ATS, and it is complete gobbledygook, and you don't want that. So keep it really simple in the body of a Word document. We are only building our resumes in Word because when you build something, for instance, in Google Docs and convert it to Word, it can have lots of strange problems. Always submit in a Word document unless the application specifically says that you can submit as a PDF, which PDF is always preferable, but everyone's system can read Word documents, but not everyone's system can read other formats. Even in this day and age, I know, but that's what we recommend. Now, one thing that I didn't know was a thing until fairly recently is keyword stuffing. This is where people will take a bunch of the keywords, and we're going to talk about those in a minute, but a bunch of the keywords, they will put them into the resume in white font and try to get past like the ATS that way. Please don't do that. All of those, many ATS will spit out a version of your resume, and that's what people are actually like the actual people are looking at. And all of those will become visible. So please don't do that. Another version of keyword stuffing, please don't just throw words into your resume because they're in the job announcement, unless they're supported throughout. We're going to talk about that just in a second. And I don't think I have to say much about this last point, but please don't lie. You'll be caught. It's a fireable offense. It's not worth it. So let's talk about tailoring your resume now. And this is so critical. I just saw someone yesterday on Instagram who said that they had sent in over 1,600 applications before they got their current job. And that, even in a somewhat challenging job market like we're having right now, that is an enormous number. And I don't want yours to be anywhere near that. And what's going to make the difference is how well you tailor your resume for each position. So please pay careful attention to what I'm about to say. Now, what I mean by tailoring your resume, first, we need to read the job description. This is probably my favorite job announcement I've ever read. But let's look at the components. So first, we can see here that this is the new College of Florida, that they are looking for a new mascot named Rudy. And I know you're going to want to know what he looks like. And I love him. I'm obsessed. But then we get down to the description. Okay, so what does this mascot need to do? And they go into some details of that. And they talk about the duties. Okay, what do we expect you to kind of do every day? What's this job going to be like? That's important to you to read to make sure that this sounds like the kind of thing you would want to do, because we also don't want you to end up in a job that's going to make you unhappy. Again, outside of the scope of this little 30-minute chat, but we go into a lot of detail about how to find a job that'll make you happy in the course. Then the qualifications. And sometimes there are minimum qualifications and then also additional qualifications like there are here. So be sure that you're on the lookout, because if they have it in sneaky kind of 2 sections, that's important. And the qualifications are really what's going to make the difference. That is what you're scored on. They're looking to find each of those qualifications in your resume. So you have to make sure that you are clearly demonstrating each one, that you are pulling exact keywords and phrases exactly as they appear in the job announcement, because this helps with both ATS and also with the HR person who doesn't know your job but is looking for those qualifications. And let's make sure that we are not causing them to have to do qualification algebra. So what that is when I'll have a client say, oh, well, I did A and I did B, so obviously I have qualification C. But if someone doesn't know or understand your job, they might not be able to put that together. So no qualifications algebra, make it clear in the exact keywords and phrases. And for those of you who are coming out of school or were recently in school, or frankly, most of my clients, that might feel a little weird, but I promise there is no plagiarism jail in resume writing, and this is really how you get interviews. So take your time. Additional options are you can go down to that additional qualifications section and you can start lifting keywords and phrases. I really recommend that. If you have any time at all to do that, do it. Also, lifting keywords and phrases from the duties. This is where, when it gets to the hiring manager, this will help them be able to see you in the job. So making some of those keywords and phrases into your resume from the duties can also be really helpful. And then also some company jargon. If you're really interested in this company and you are noticing they're using sort of terms of art, any like jargon or anything like that in the job announcement, including some of that in your resume can clearly demonstrate that you already are and understand you're part of this world. And so that can be very, very helpful as well. Now, if you're thinking, holy cow, this sounds like a lot of work, I've got you. We need to be realistic about your time and energy. One thing that's been lingering for decades is people say, when you're looking for a job, it should be a full time job. To which I say, absolutely not. No, if you're spending 8 hours a day on job applications and networking, it is very likely that the quality of your applications will deteriorate significantly. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And we want to make sure that you have enough energy and interest so that you can keep sending in high quality applications. So, what I recommend is breaking your job announcements into 3 tiers. So, let's say you found 10 jobs that sound good. Um, First tier are like your dream job. Oh my gosh, these are the ones that you would love to do. It's perfect. Do most of your time on tier one. So do all of the tailoring, look at all the qualifications, the job duties, spend as much time as you need. And there's a system that we will teach you in the course to make this really highly efficient. So you will be able to get to a point where you can tailor your resume in half an hour or less. Because I really think way too many people spend way too much time on this part of your job search. Then for tier two, these are the jobs that you're like, yeah, it's a good job, not a dream job, but good. Make sure you work in all of the qualifications, keywords and phrases from all the qualifications. This is how you get interviews. For tier three, the jobs you're like, I mean, if it pays green money, sure, just throw your application in, just throw your resume in and call it a day. Because you will most likely see many jobs in tier three, but we want to make sure that you are spending your mental energy on tier one and tier two, so that we are getting you to the job that you really, really want. Um, so I hope that this was helpful. As I said, there's a lot more detail in the course, and we really go into it. If you're interested, here's a QR code. I'm going to answer questions in just 1 second, but here's a QR code that you can take a look at. And here's the website as well. We go into lots more information. Our next cohorts are starting in January. And just for attending this, I do want to offer you a 10% off coupon code. So if you or someone that you love in your life could use this course, please feel free to use this. Also, the holidays are coming up, and we do offer gift certificates in case you want to gift the course. But now I'd love to answer any questions that I can. I have to admit, this is my first time going live on LinkedIn, and so I'm going to try to figure out how I can answer questions. I tell you what, if you all want to send me a message on LinkedIn, I will take a look at my messages right now and see where we are with those. But otherwise, let me answer a few of the questions that I usually get. Some of the things people usually ask me are, is this really effective? And the answer is yes. I kind of think of the job search, I sort of diagnose when I'm meeting with a new client in 3 buckets. And so I think of it like this. The first bucket is, are you finding jobs you want to apply to? And if you are, then, or if you aren't, then that tells me we need to do one of two things. Either we need to work on your career path and figure out what it is that you want to do, or we need to work on teaching you how to most effectively use some of the job boards like LinkedIn or Indeed or the millions of others. And we will give you a list of the top job boards, which ones we most recommend, as well as industry specific job boards. Those are, of course, included in the course, and they're really helpful. The second bucket that I diagnose is when you're applying, are you getting invited to interviews? And if you're not getting interviews, that tells me we need to work on your resume and your cover letter. And again, as I said, it's really important to tailor. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. We also will teach you a way to do that super efficiently so that your job applications are taking way, way less time. You are not, I don't want anyone stressing over their resume and their cover letter for hours or days. That's not necessary and it's not pleasant. Also, networking. It's really critical, and it's one of the secret and main ways that people get jobs, frankly. There are some studies that I'm not so sure about, but could be true, that as many as 80% of jobs come through networking. So we're going to teach you how to do that effectively and in a way that doesn't feel slimy. Um, for most people, networking is their least favorite part of the job search, but we're going to teach you how to go in already knowing what you're going to say, having your questions and hard asks, and just in a much more strategic way so it feels comfortable. And then the last bucket is if you're getting interviews, but you're not getting second round interviews or offers, then that tells me we need to work on your interview skills. And it's super teachable. Again, through the course, our method is you'll walk in basically already knowing what you're going to say. So you're a lot more confident. You already know how you're going to position yourself in their minds and how you're going to answer that super important question of what is the return on the investment of hiring you. So, as you're thinking about your own job search, think about where you might be getting stuck and which of the three buckets, or possibly all of the buckets, which a lot of us are in that boat. But which ones will be most helpful? And as I said, we walk you through all of this, and we're available to answer a million questions throughout the course. So don't worry, if all of the buckets need work, you're in a great positions where most people start. I'm just looking at my messages to see if there are any questions. Um, yes, I have one question, and I'm so sorry I did not think about this aspect of going live because normally I do webinars. But one question came in. What is the most effective resume template? And that's a great question. Um, there are plenty of templates. We're going to offer you a lot of them so you can see which one works for you. It depends on the industry for one thing. So if you, as I said, are going for a more traditional industry like legal, banking, government, any of those, then I do recommend a more traditional looking resume. We used to say not to use any color because people would print out resumes and color could look really strange. These days, it's less common that people are printing, and so a little bit of color can be okay. For some more innovative and forward-leaning industries like tech, you can get a little bit more fun, and we do have some templates that are a little bit more eye-catching. But really, it's the one that you like. All the templates we're going to offer you are great. They all have worked for our clients for years. We're constantly updating them, and so you can't go wrong. The only thing that I don't recommend, as I said, any template that includes columns, headers, footers, graphics, text boxes, what did I miss? Tables, any of that is not a good idea. Um, for any of you, though, who are in creative fields, absolutely adding a little creativity. And this is the one place where I deviate from making it sort of highly readable and scannable. I had one client who was a graphic designer, and they designed this like really amazing border for their resume. And of course, they had a link to their online portfolio, which we can talk to you about how to build that too. But this like cool frame and part of their resume honestly got them the job because it was beautiful, it stood out, and it made so much sense in their industry. So although I don't recommend some of the sort of more outlandish things people have done to get jobs, it like mailing a shoe, saying you're a shoe in or whatever, that's a classic one. There's a reason why you hear about those, and it's because they so infrequently work. Instead, let's make you have a really polished and beautiful resume that is going to land well with people. Now, I see that we're right at time. Thank you so much. I hope that you learned a ton. This was a lot of fun and kind of a challenge to fit this much information into half an hour. Please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer more questions through LinkedIn Messenger. You can also see our website is convergecoaches.com, and feel free to scan this QR code, and there's way more information on our website. But thank you so much for joining me, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Have a great day and a nice weekend. Thanks. Bye.